All right, welcome folks. Mil-Spec Ops Monkey here. This is going to be your sit rep for Friday, December 17th, 2021, coming to you live from the great state of Texas. It is about 12 noon Central Time. And so without further ado, let's hop on over to our page. Make sure you hit that like, subscribe, and bell for notification so you get the latest and greatest. So we're going to kick it off first and foremost here on Skyglass. Just a data point. Sitting at about 40 air refuelers up right now, which is very heavy. That's actually pretty high. And so remember, when you have air refuelers, that typically indicates that you've got a lot of fighters up because they're up to support that. And so if you look at the concentration, a lot over kind of the southeast down into Florida, all the way up the East Coast. Now we know Biden is headed to Delaware this evening, but today he is in South Carolina. That would be why we have this congregation of refuelers over the Carolinas, because we know that anywhere he goes, he always has to have some fighter top cover. I'm just going to put that out there. I will tell you that Trump did not do that. Okay, that guy wasn't worried about too much, and if you did see him, it was a pretty good reason for it, but this guy seems to be scared of his own shadow. So then, of course, we have a bunch here in the central U.S., and then out here on the East Coast, kind of peppered a little, or sorry, West Coast, kind of peppered. And so other than that, not too much in way of other activity. Now, it's in terms of numbers, total numbers, it's not crazy off the chain. Now, if we go over here and look just an hour and a half ago at the tanker situation, you guys can see that was actually just getting started, and it has since grown. So that at that point it was about 25. That was about 2 hours ago, and it has since, almost doubled. So a lot of air refuelers. Again, the concentration is really over Biden's location, which is here across the East Coast, all the way up the coast, actually, all from Carolinas all the way up. And then if you look at the heavies, if we kind of get over here and take a look, the heavies are kind of light today. Normally Friday is a very, heavy traffic day for the heavies, right? And so when I talk about the heavies, I'm talking about the transports like C-17s, C-130s, C-5s, etc. That number is lower than usual. But let me bump this down. Now it has increased, and we'll look at it here. You can see the heavies kind of stand out on the map, right? When you're looking at this, they just have that bigger icon. It's a little larger. Of course, we've got our R-135 up here. That's a spy bird that's out running their normal stuff in that general area. This is what the plane looks like. For those not familiar, I kind of go into it every once in a while. You notice the array of antennas along the spine of that aircraft, that little dome on the back. And then, of course, this doghouse on the side, that is on both sides. And then that really funky looking nose that they put on there. But this thing right here has been very active over the last several days. Not just, and this aircraft in particular, not this plane, across the Black Sea. And so this will actually, man, when they fly over an area, they can grab a lot of data, not just cell tower data, but they can grab, they're actually taking snapshots of everything on the ground, and I don't mean like a picture snapshot, but a radar image, and they track that stuff. It's a trip. This thing is, capabilities are insane. Okay, so back over here to our ADSB. Let's see, Florida again, very, very heavy. If we get into that general area, a couple C-130s out. These are fighters, so we'll watch and see. They look to be doing land-based touch and goes. Typically, when you see their altitude low out over the water, that means there's a carrier off the deck they're shooting approaches on. It doesn't look that way right now, but that is one fighter. So we got 4 fighters off the coast of Florida right now. I did see an air refueler down in South Florida on our other map, but not seeing it on here. Of course, we got this one out over the water, running air refueling in the Panhandle area in general. And then we've got this one coming down, this E3. Now notice he's starting to run that tight circle. That means there are some ships of interest out here in the Gulf. That may be why we have these air refuelers out over the Gulf as well. But when they run that real tight circle, they start to do the man in the middle, and they start doing tower catches or, intercepts. And so that right there is not working air traffic. As you can see, not a lot of it. He is actually doing a data grab. Interesting. Okay, so we got something that looks like happening down here in this general region over the water in the Florida area. And then, of course, out here on the west or east coast. Get my east and west all mixed up today. But it looks like we got some fighter activity out here also. Now, we know as we get over to our weather map, you can see Flashbang is currently in South Carolina. And then he's going to be headed back up here to the Senior Living Center, Brown Zone, and then on to his house. Now, all of these boxes right here, I just want to show you, it's actually a little less than it was yesterday. These are power outages. We had that storm come through a couple of days ago, and it knocked out power. And there was a lot of this, probably about triple that amount. You can see Michigan and northern Michigan seems to still have quite a bit of power out up in that general area, but these also are power outages just kind of popping across the country. Pretty amazing. Don't ever recall us having those kind of issues weather related, right? We saw the tornadoes that hit in Kentucky and in that area, and then of course we had this storm come through after that fact and take down a lot of power. So TFR wise, we still got a space one over Florida, and these that are Flashbang related. Out here on this side, that's a security TFR in Southern California, just south of Ventura. This one is Beale Air Force Base, which is also a security TFR. That's always there. New here in Texas, that one is new. This is a normal TFR, so is this one on the border. Let me just click on that and see what we have. It's a security over McGregor, Texas. Don't know what it's for, but just putting it out there, data point, okay? All right, let me minimize this. Let's get over to the volcanic ash side. It's actually lighter than what I expected. I've been getting ash alerts on my phone just in the last 3 days. I had some 60+ alerts, and they weren't just for ash, but they were for volcanic activity. So you'll notice La Palma is not showing up today. So it looks like that one has kind of subsided from an ash perspective. It's probably still spewing, just not ash. We had 7 along this area yesterday and the day before, and now it's down to 3. We've got this one in Southeast Asia kind of area also popping, and then this one in China, or not China, but Japan, that's still firing. That's kind of a regular, as was La Palma, as are these. Okay, let's take a look at Flashbang schedule, and then we'll start to kind of track into this whole Great Reset thing that I was talking about. I want to just point out their plan of action and what we ought to be counter planning for because they are moving right along with this, and you'll see it when I start to point out all the things that are going on around the world right now. All right. So for the 17th, again, he's headed down to South Carolina, and then from there he's headed up to Wilmington, Delaware. Okay. Other than that, not a lot of excitement. Well, there's probably not a lot anyway, but just saying. All right. Now, we were looking the other day. I was showing you. Let me get over here. I just want to show you the map. We were talking about, from a marine traffic standpoint, the fact that all of these boats bugged out away from the shore, and it was really kind of strange. And I was trying to figure out what was going on. Evidently, it looks like they had actually I guess they were required to move off the shore because of strong winds and rough seas. They didn't want the boats all close together like that. And so that's why you saw them all kind of scattering away from there. Now, I've also heard something about if they were more than 40 miles off the shore, that they weren't reported as waiting. So it changes the metric in terms of flow in and out of the port. I don't know if how accurate that is. It makes sense. Because like I've always said, it depends just how you measure things, right? We've seen them skew numbers with unemployment and a bunch of other things our government lies to us on a regular basis. So for that to be, one of the methods where they push them off the shore 40 miles and make them sit so that they're no longer considered waiting at port, wouldn't shock me at the least. So, okay, so if we look at the current ones in port, I did a little bit of a head count. We're about 65 in there right now. Of course, we've got all of these that are now kind of further away from the shore. These are actually moving I don't know if they're going to be pulling back in and trying to jockey for position, but these guys are out as well as these. Like I said, initially I thought maybe they were going to other ports. They just had given up, but it was actually storm related, all right, high seas and storm related. But 65 still in port, and these guys will probably pull back in, which would bump that number back up into the 80 range probably. Okay, aircraft of interest. This is going to be N721AL. This is actually Department of No Justice. And I just want to point out, you remember about a week ago, they had flown down to Brunswick. We had the Secretary of Homeland Security down there. We had some flights come out of Guantanamo Bay that tucked into Brunswick as well. And these guys dropped the team off and went back. And then it looks like they came back and picked them up on Tuesday. So they were there for a full 7 days, it looks like, 7 or 8 days. Down in Brunswick, and so that is kind of your deployment team. So something was going on here. It could have been an exercise and everybody getting together for some plans, or it was something other than that, and we'll read about it downstream in the paper. All right, now this one is Maze 245. This is actually a drone, and it has been very active as of recent days off the coast, right along the border, doing some recon out over the water. Now remember, we're just looking at some more stuff going on over here in the panhandle of the Gulf, and so it seems like they are very interested in what's going on out here in the Gulf of Mexico right now. So who knows? Sometimes you get a sub will pop in there and sneak in and out, and that may be what's going on. Okay. Now, we're going to talk a little bit about immigration. One of the things I want to point out as I get over here to the Great Reset, I just want to show you their strategy map, okay? If you look at the things that are taking shape around the world right now, notice you've got extreme weather that are drivers for them, natural disasters, right? What do we just happen? We just saw this storm roll through across the U.S. Now, is that geoengineering stuff we've been talking about with HAARP? Nothing would surprise me. Very possible. I've seen some very strange Doppler activity with rings and stuff like that happen here in Texas over the past year. And so, and it always happens right around the time, that we have a tornado outbreak or some extreme weather like the freeze and things like that. So nothing would surprise me more. But notice we have involuntary immigration or migration, okay, social instability. There's a lot of things, this whole global governance failure. And then as you'll notice, unemployment, financial crisis is part of their deal, asset bubbles. And we're going to talk a little bit about that. So when we say asset bubbles, we're talking like Evergrande, right? Where you got a collapse coming in. So this is all of their game plan. And we can see it actually taking shape as we kind of go forward here. And even though I know I track planes, we also talk about why these planes are making moves, and it does kind of fit. You remember, just about everything from a pulse standpoint across the world is tied to this aircraft movement, right? Movement of goods, movement of people. You can track troops, you can track other activity that they may not want you to track, but it's all out there. And when you got a government that's or people that are fat, dumb, and happy, right? They're going to spend your money like nobody's business. Well, they do it jumping on nice airplanes and flying around. So, okay, so here's what I want to point out real fast. We were just talking about the fact that immigration and the forced migration. I just want to show you that Biden is now looking at Europe's approach to mass migration, and he's talking about putting up border immigration centers. All right, these would be giant facilities to where they would hold people. One thing I do want to point out is that this Trump era Remain in Mexico policy has been enforced, and that's why we're not seeing the push or the rush coming into the U.S. right now. They're all being pushed back in and held in Mexico. And so Mexico are the ones right now that are feeling it, and we're not. So you may notice that the border stuff has kind of slowed down just a little bit. It seems like we've got our hands on it, at least in control right now. You've got Governor Abbott, who's put National Guard troops down on the border. I know the hotels are full of those guys. And so looks like we're making some right moves here, at least in the state of Texas. And thank God Trump put a policy in play that has been upheld by a U.S. appeals court. So the White House tried to get them to stop it and block it, and we're not successful. And so that's why we're not hearing a bunch of crazy stuff about the caravan, because they're all camping out in Mexico. Okay. Now, the ones that are getting through are going to be your poppies. They are coming in from a different direction, not south of the border. And so I just want to point out, this is Biggs Army Airfield. This is where a lot of our centralized movement seems to be taking shape. And we've been covering this for a while, but I just want to show you there is an uptick right now, again, of aircraft coming in and leaving to different locations. And so you're going to notice Sierra Pacific rolled in. This was an arrival, came in from Tucson. Of course, they're based out of there. That's where you expect them. So they probably deadheaded into Biggs. And if you go over here and look where that plane left, there's B709, took off, went to Little Rock, Arkansas. Okay. And so that looks like they just got a fresh load of poppies into Little Rock. You've got Omni Air, Fort Worth Alliance came in. And then, of course, it went to Joint Base McChord, Lewis McChord up in Tacoma, Washington. Now, I don't know if that contained poppies or if that was troop movement. I will tell you, I have been watching a lot of troop movement on the flights. If you go look at the Canberra flights, there's no destination, although you can track to where they go, but you just got to be patient and wait. I don't report on that because it is troop movement, but with all the stuff going on around the world right now, we seem to be moving folks into some very strategic locations. And so have to keep our eyes on that one. But I think we are on the brink of something big popping, especially in Europe. Okay, this is a Delta Airlines Airbus. Took off, went over to El Paso, which is just a hop, skip, and a jump. So they basically take off and land and go back into revenue service. So they probably brought somebody in. I don't see the Delta Airlines flight on the arrival board. But that one actually looks to have brought some folks inbound and then went back into service. Okay, Laughlin, Del Rio, I just want to show you this has been active with taking aircraft. This is actually going to be one of your Swift Airs. Went to Alexandria, 72-hour holding facility and back. So it's been round robining. It looks like they are actually processing people to the holding facility and then deporting them. And so this is a round robin back and forth from Del Rio or Laughlin Air Force Base. Okay, over to McGuire. This is the other one that seems to have a lot of activity going on for the migration push. This is a plane, a 747-400 that rolled in, Western Global, based or headquartered out of Sarasota, Florida. I don't see it on the board for departures. Although I do see this one coming inbound. This is actually a national cargo coming in from Chicago O'Hare, and then we have an Air Transport International coming in from Baltimore. Those are probably bringing in some fresh poppies into our country, and then those folks will be actually processed out and into one of the other locations, if not rehomed into our communities. Okay, and so that push is continuing. Like I said, I've gotten intel that we've got Marines that actually have gone up to Virginia, and are actually there because of an influx of Afghanis that are coming inbound. And so that's wave number 3, right? They keep coming. So anyway, let's get over here real fast. This is Swift Air flights. Just want to show you, they are now north of the border. This morning they were south of the border. You can still see a couple. This one's coming in from El Salvador to Miami. This one actually was up in Alberta, Canada, coming down to Columbus, Ohio. But we've got them Yuma over to El Paso. Remember, Yuma is also one of the locations where we have some immigration camps going on. And so when you hear Biden talking about setting up these immigration processing facilities, all he is doing is adding to the current situation with the camps, okay? And so that is that's what you're seeing. He's just basically growing the business, so to speak. All right. Now let's talk a little bit about Europe and what's going on over there right now. This is Ukraine. This is the area of interest. Moscow and Russia up here. Okay, on this side, we know that we've got about 90 to 100,000 troops already amassed at this border of Ukraine. We've seen recent activity coming into the Black Sea with the R-135s. which tells you they're looking at the movement and activity there. If you look at this general area, it's more than likely that Putin has pushed in some of his naval fleet into this general area in preparation for an attack on Ukraine also. And then, of course, we know that they also have troops in Belarus, and that it's actually a strategic location, and they are cooperating with Russia. And so that would be the northern border of Ukraine over here, all the way out to the east side of Ukraine, we know, and then at the southern. So they are pretty much surrounded, just shy of anything coming around on this side. So what you're likely going to see if there is an invasion and a takeover is a huge migration out of Ukraine into these cities or these locations, sorry, not cities, but states, to the west of Ukraine, because that is where people will flee to get out of this general area. So watch for another migration shift. Again, all part of the Great Reset plan is to shake things up and get people moving, okay? All right, now if you look at the headlines, Russia right now is actually demanding that Ukraine be barred from NATO. What does that tell you? That's because NATO is probably going to be the outfit that goes in to basically stop or isolate Russia's move into the Ukraine. And obviously they don't want Ukraine being part of that action, okay? And then, of course, we've got another economic push. This is why people move around and why we have wars. It's just like World War II, World War I. Remember, war is an economy. And so what happens is when you start to see all of these economies starting to collapse, for example, Turkey right now has about a 45% hit on their dollar. You've got China, who is on the brink of a massive recession and economic collapse. The U.S. is right behind them. We're spending money like nobody's business. And of course, Russia right now, they just delivered another giant rate hike to try and level set the inflation, right? So when you have inflation, what happens, right? You have a larger gap starts to expand between the haves and the have-nots. People that have a lot of money, inflation, yeah, it hurts them, but it doesn't hurt them as bad as folks that don't have a lot of money and can't afford things. And so when those when you see the inflationary rate start to hike across, actually it's global. You see it in the U.S. going out of control. Russia's dealing with it. Turkey's dealing with it. China's dealing with it. And these are the three of the biggest players out there, right? Russia, China, and the U.S. Then that is kind of a pretty big indication that there's definitely some change brewing in terms of the economic woes. And so the fact that this is going on is the same issue that China is having relative to Taiwan, where that's going to probably be their reason for the push into Taiwan. Russia, this will be their reason for a push into the Ukraine, because war is an economy. All right, let's get over to Guantanamo Bay real fast just to see what's going on today. Looks like we've got most of our normal stuff. Amerijet's coming in from Norfolk. Sun Country, that's going to be your legal eagle for the Ubers. And of course, we've got this one that has now jumped into the sequence. That's TTA Logistics. They are actually filling the void for all the other ones that we typically see on a Tuesday, Friday. So Tuesday, Fridays are kind of the uptick. It's when people come in on Tuesdays and they leave on a Friday. They don't spend the weekends there. And of course, that's the scheduled departure. That's going to be your Jacksonville, taking them back, round robins. Now, remember, we have a court proceeding going on right now for one of the 9/11 guys. And he is, I think it ends this week. So next week, it's going to be kind of a down week for Guantanamo Bay. So we'll watch to see if we have any activity or action. Probably not. It'll probably be very slow on the island or spa, right? Okay. Now, we just talked a little bit about Russia and their economic woes. I just wanted to point out, we've been talking about this one for about 6 weeks now. Evergrande in China. It's an S&P actually has just joined all the major creditors and rating Evergrande, basically stating that they are now officially in default. Remember, we said they got a little bit of a reprieve because they paid interest for $82.5 million. Well, it turns out they didn't pay it. That was just, they were saying they're going to pay it, but they never came through. That $82.5 million interest is on top of They're almost $400 billion in debt, and it's all real estate debt, which equates to some 26.9% of China's GDP. So when that hits, their economy is getting ready to take a major hit, as are the economies around the world. And so they are at any point now going to be declaring a complete default. Again, this is going to be like the Lehman Brothers in 2008, and it's going to probably set the stage for everything else around the world economically. All right. Okay, let's see. Make sure, I think I covered everything. Again, we'll continue to watch this fighter activity over the U.S. And see if we get any more uptick. Like I said, I don't think I've ever seen 40 air refuelers up at one point across the United States. That's a metric ton of aircraft. That is a large amount, especially knowing what they're supporting. So we seem to be on some type of level of alert. I don't know why, other than the Ukraine and China stuff. But here domestically, we seem to be really focused in on the Gulf, focused in on the East Coast. They really seem to be watching the water right now a lot. So stay frosty out there. I think things are about to ramp up as we get closer to the end of the year. Guys, be safe. God bless. Monkey out.
Check out the latest gear and products at Monkey Werx US.